Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are tuning our ears to something truly iconic, but with a bit of a twist. I want you to picture it. London, the swinging 60s,
Carnaby Street, the whole scene.
the whole scene. And the soundtrack to all of that is, of course, the Kinks.
A band that, they really did define the sound of that era. They were kind of the darker, maybe weirder, more satirical cousins to the Beatles and the Stones.
Absolutely. And we're looking at one song in particular, their huge 1966 hit, Dedicated Follower of Fashion.
You know it the second it starts.
You do. It's got this swagger, this satirical bite.
Yeah.
But we're not here today to talk about the lyrics or even the cultural impact, really. We're zooming in, way in, on a microscopic detail.
Sonic texture.
Exactly. Right at the very beginning of the track. It's a sound that fans and, audiophiles have obsessed over for decades.
It is. It's one of those details people point to as, like, the Kinks sound. If you listen to that opening electric guitar, it doesn't sound standard. It's thin. It's jangly.
Yeah.
It has this weird, almost rattling quality to it.
Right. And for, nearly 60 years, the story in music forums and biographies has always been that this was a stroke of genius. You see people, analyzing compression settings, debating the microphones they used.
Or that maybe Ray Davies slashed the speaker cone of his amp again. Which he did do on You Really Got Me, so there was a precedent.
A great point. So it makes sense that fans would just assume this brittle intro was another deliberate avant-garde choice. Maybe a commentary on the thinness of the fashion world.
It fits the story perfectly.
It does. But today, we're going to completely blow that story out of the water.
Yeah.
We have a source that just flips the script on what we think we know.
We do. Our guide for this deep dive is a man named Alan Florence. And Florence isn't just a historian looking back. He was there. He was a senior sound engineer at Pi Studios in the 60s.
Wow. Okay, so this is a primary source. This is the guy in the room.
Or at least in the building. And his account of what happened that night suggests the genius sound wasn't exactly intentional. In fact, it sounds less like artistic vision and more like workplace politics and, frankly, a bit of technical incompetence.
That's putting it lightly. So the mission today is to uncover the real story, the unknown story, behind this recording. We're going to look at how a technical slip-up, a bit of negligence, created a piece of music history.
It's a fascinating look at that tension between, technical perfection and what we perceive as art. It makes you ask how much of what we call a classic is crafted and how much is just an accident that nobody bothered to fix.
I love that. Okay, let's go there. Set the scene for us. Take us back to that night.
All right. So the date is February 1966. The location, the legendary Pi Studios in London. And Pi wasn't some, garage operation. This was a factory for hits, a serious high-end facility.
Right.
And on this particular night, the studios got a split setup.
Pretty standard for big studios, right?
Yeah.
Multiple rooms running at once.
Exactly. So in Studio 1, you have our source, Alan Florence. He's the senior guy. He's recording a full orchestra with a producer named John Schroeder. So just picture that for a second.
Yeah.
Studio 1 is this very disciplined, precise environment.
Classical recording, it's all about perfect fidelity. Capturing the sound exactly.
Precisely. But that's not where the Kinks are.
Okay.
They're down the hall in Studio 2. And here is a crucial detail. Usually, Alan Florence, our guy, would be the one engineering for the Kinks. He says he was their go-to guy pretty often.
Which means he knows their sound, he gets how Ray Davies works, he probably feels a bit of, ownership over their quality control.
That's it, exactly. But on this night, he's tied up with the orchestra, so he isn't running the board for the Kinks. Someone else is.
Enter the other Alan.
Alan Mackenzie. And this is where it gets really interesting because of the professional dynamics here. Alan Florence has a very specific bias. He points out that Mackenzie wasn't a music guy in the way that he was. Mackenzie was an ex-Granada TV engineer.
Okay, hold on. To a modern listener, sound engineer sounds like the same job. Why does he care that he's from TV?
Well, back in '66, this was a huge distinction. Florence is pretty blunt about it. He says something like, "To my mind, most TV sound engineers were never music engineers." He admits there are exceptions, but his general feeling was that TV guys just didn't have the ear for music.
So a TV engineer knows the tech, they can make sure dialogue is clear, but they're not painting with sound.
Exactly. In TV, audio supports the picture. As long as it's clean and audible, you're good. In music, the audio is the picture. You're sculpting warmth, texture, space. Florence saw them as operators, not artists. He just didn't think they had the sensitivity for a rock band.
And there's also the bit about how Mackenzie got the job, which adds a little friction.
Oh, absolutely. It smacks of nepotism. Mackenzie was hired because he was friends with the studio boss, Bob Auger. And guess what? Bob Auger was also an ex-Granada TV engineer.
I'm sensing a little workplace tension. Florence the purist, watching this TV clique take over the rock sessions.
Just a bit. And Florence basically sets this all up to foreshadow what's about to happen. He believes that on this night, Alan Mackenzie proved his theory right in the most spectacular way.
Okay, so Florence is in Studio 1 with the orchestra, Mackenzie is in Studio 2 with the Kinks. What happens?
Well, the orchestra session takes a break. And you know how it is in those places. Curiosity gets the bumper of you. Florence decides to just wander up to Studio 2.
Just to be a fly on the wall? Or maybe check up on his band?
Probably a bit of both. He thinks, I'll just go have a listen. So he walks into the control room of Studio 2.
And what does he see? A big party.
No, actually, he finds Alan Mackenzie totally alone. And the visual Florence describes is so vivid. He says Mackenzie is just standing there with jack plugs, the patch cables, just hanging around his neck.
Okay.
And this is the kicker. Mackenzie has, quote, a big smile on his face.
A big smile. All right, I'm banking that detail. That smile is going to be important.
It is. So Mackenzie is in the middle of editing quarter-inch tape. This is 1966. No computers. He's using a razor blade to physically splice tape. And he's attaching the opening electric guitar intro for dedicated follower of fashion.
So this is it. This is the moment.
Yeah.
Florence walks in right as the iconic intro is being created.
Yes. And naturally, Florence wants to hear it. He's the senior engineer. He knows the band. He's expecting to hear that punchy, full Kinks sound.
So they hit play.
They hit play. And immediately, before a single word is sung, Florence knows something is deeply wrong.
What does he hear?
He says it's thin. He describes it as different and wrong. It just lacks the body, the low end that it should have. To his ears, it doesn't sound like a style choice. It sounds like a technical failure.
And he says something. He calls him out.
He does. He asks him straight up, why does it sound so thin? Why does it sound so wrong?
And here comes the smile again, right?
Yeah. Here comes the smile. Florence says it was quite unbelievable to him. Mackenzie, still smiling, just explains what happened. When they were making a copy of that guitar part, he made a basic physical error.
The jack plugs around his neck.
Yeah. He admitted that he had mistakenly not pushed the jack plug right the way home.
Oh, wow. So literally the cable was not plugged in all the way.
Not all the way. It was making some contact, but not full contact. In the engineering world, Florence says this creates what they call a one-legged effect.
One-legged. I love that. But okay, we have to break this down. For anyone who's not an audio engineer, what does that actually mean? Is it like when your headphones crackle?
It's related to that, but a bit more specific. In pro studios, they use balanced connections. A single cable has 3 wires inside: a ground, a hot positive signal, and a cold negative signal.
Yeah, 3 wires.
The hot and cold wires carry the same audio, but the cold one is phase inverted. It's flipped upside down. When the signal gets to the other end, the gear flips the cold signal back up.
And why do all that?
Noise cancellation. Any hum or static the cable picks up affects both wires. When you flip one back at the end, the noise cancels itself out, and the real audio signal gets stronger and cleaner.
So what one-legged connection means?
You fail to connect one of those signal wires, you lose the balancing, you lose half your signal strength, but more importantly, it often causes the bass frequencies to just vanish. The sound becomes tinny, scratchy, and really nasal.
So from a physics standpoint, it is a broken signal. It's not an effect, it's a malfunction.
It's a mistake, a pure fumble. It's a technically compromised signal. And Florence is just horrified. In his world, if you get a one-legged signal, you stop. You push the plug in, you do it again. You would never, ever use it.
But Mackenzie, he didn't fix it.
He didn't, and this is what blows Florence's mind. Mackenzie, fully aware of the mistake, that's why he's smiling, just decided to go with it. He took this wrongly recorded one-legged guitar track and spliced it onto the front of the master tape.
He just used it anyway. Why? Laziness? He didn't want to admit he messed up.
That's the million-dollar question. Maybe he didn't want to ask the band to play it again. Or maybe it confirms Florence's bias. As a TV guy, his standard was just, is it audible? You can hear the guitar, so it's good enough. He didn't have that music studio perfectionism.
Or, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, maybe he heard that weird scratchy sound and thought, hey, that's actually kind of cool.
It's possible, but Florence sure didn't see it that way. He saw pure negligence. But whatever the reason, that tape went through the system. It was mastered, cut to acetate, and mass-produced. And on February 25, 1966, that one-legged mistake was released to the world.
That is just incredible. So millions of people bought this record, listening to a guitar intro that was literally the sound of a loose cable.
Exactly.
Right.
And this brings us to the most fascinating part of the story for me, the aftermath. Because it doesn't end there.
Right, the song's a hit. It's a classic.
It is. Now, fast forward decades, we're in the internet age. Alan Florence is just browsing the web, and he stumbles onto a Kinks appreciation site.
I can just picture him scrolling through, seeing what people are saying about the old days, probably expecting them to complain about the sound quality.
He mentions the site was American, which just shows you the reach, and he starts reading the comments specifically about dedicated follower of fashion.
And I'm guessing they weren't saying it sounded thin and wrong.
The exact opposite. This is where reality and perception just completely diverge. Florence reads comments from fans who are absolutely raving about that specific sound.
What were they saying?
Things like, what a fantastic track, how did they get that sound, and what an amazing recording.
How did they get that sound? Ouch, that must have stung.
They were analyzing it like it was some high-level deliberate choice. They wished they knew the secret. Was it a special pedal, a damaged amp tube?
Right.
They were assigning genius to what was really just a clumsy mistake.
And Florence is sitting there. The only one who knows the secret recipe is don't plug your cable in properly.
It drove him crazy. He said, I thought I've never heard anything so stupid. For him, reading that praise was just absurd. He says it was just a mistake that should never have been let out.
He's still the senior engineer. He sees negligence. The fans hear genius.
That's the whole story right there. Florence's view is rigid. The engineer's job is to capture the sound correctly. Plug isn't in, you failed. But the fans don't care about the jack plug. They care about how the song feels. And ironically, that thin, scratchy, one-legged sound, it kind of fit the song.
It really did. The song's about somebody who's shallow, flighty, thin on character. A rich, warm guitar sound might have been too serious. The mistake actually served the art better than a perfect recording would have.
That's the happy accident theory. But for Florence, there was no happiness in it. He's adamant the engineer should have stopped it. It was a professional lapse of judgment.
It's just so funny to think of these audio files with thousands of dollars of gear, analyzing the frequencies of that intro, thinking, the brilliance of Pi Studios, while the guy who was there is yelling at his screen. It was a mistake.
It really challenges this idea of the auteur in music production. We want to believe every sound on a classic record was put there by a visionary. But Florence is telling us that sometimes the vision is just a guy who used to work in TV and forgot to push a plug-in all the way.
And he was smiling about it. That's the part that gets me. It's almost like Mackenzie knew he was getting away with something.
Or maybe he just didn't take it as seriously as Florence did. To a TV engineer, maybe the result was just interesting. To Florence, perfect was the only standard.
So what does this mean for us then? When we hear that song now, can we ever unhear the mistake?
I don't think so. Next time you listen, you're going to hear that missing bass. You're going to hear the one-leggedness of it. But I also don't think we should want to unhear it. Knowing it's an error adds this layer of humanity to it.
It grounds the whole thing.
It does. It reminds you these legendary records were made by real people in real rooms, dealing with physical gear, making mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes result in something better than what was planned.
The ultimate perfectly imperfect.
Exactly. And it's a bit of a reality check for anyone obsessed with gear. You can have the best studio in the world, but the most memorable sound might come from the thing you did wrong.
Okay, so to recap this whole saga, hit song, disgruntled senior engineer Alan Florence, somewhat hapless TV engineer Alan Mackenzie,
Smiling.
yeah, makes a clumsy error. The jack plug isn't in, the sound is one-legged, and he just edits it in, and history is made.
A beautiful mess. It just shows that once art leaves the studio, the creator or the engineer loses control of the story. The listener is the one who decides what's genius.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If we could go back and talk to the engineers on every classic album, how many of those groundbreaking textures were just someone tripping over a wire?
Or a mic stand that was slowly drooping during a take.
Right. Does knowing the truth ruin the magic? For Florence, it seems like it did. He couldn't get past the technical flaw. But for us, for the world, that flaw became the signature sound.
And that's the beauty of it. If the listener hears genius, then in a way it is genius. Intent isn't everything.
That's a fantastic point. The intention doesn't always define the outcome. Sometimes the universe just steps in and mixes the track for you.
And maybe we should give a little nod to Alan Mackenzie. He might have been technically wrong, but he accidentally made something completely right.
A pioneer of the one-legged sound.
A trailblazer of negligence.
Well, next time you're listening to Dedicated Follower of Fashion, listen for the thinness. Listen for the rattle. And spare a thought for Alan Florence, shaking his head, wondering how on earth they got away with it.
And maybe check your own cables. You never know what you might be creating.
Exactly. Sometimes the mistake is the masterpiece. That is going to do it for this deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
Here's a thought to leave you with. We place so much value on mastery and intent in art. We want the artist to be in total control. But if a loose plug can create a sound that defines a generation, what other iconic moments in history, in art, in science, were actually just the result of someone forgetting to check the details? And does it even matter? Or is the mistake just the universe co-writing the script?
A provocative thought.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.